Well, hi, Gil. We had to abandon our call due to an unwanted guest. So we're now doing this, just the two of us here, and we'll be sending it out to you. So, Gil, we found ourselves in a rather, after over a year of everything that's been going on in Israel, we found ourselves in this place right now where nobody it feels like nobody really knows what's going on. We're hearing things, we're being told things, to try and make us feel better about what we've done and what's happened, and yet it's not really making anybody feel any better, I don't think. So are you able to give us a bit of an understanding of this word ceasefire, which is how it's being translated in English everywhere,
Yeah,
even from sites, Israeli sites?
yeah.
So, what is this? What's actually being
Well,
agreed?
it's definitely not a ceasefire. A ceasefire is not the right term to use. I mean, a ceasefire is when you have a war going on, and then a ceasefire is just it's a break. It's a break from fighting. You pause. You stop. You're trying to clarify things, trying to negotiate things. But the option of going back to fighting is always there on the table. It's just a break. That's a ceasefire. But right now on the northern border of Israel, the term is not a ceasefire. What is happening now is a settling agreement. Okay, it's not a peace agreement that ends the war and everybody goes home peacefully and happy. It's a settling agreement. Okay, it's like some kind of a compromise, if you'd like.
Right.
And basically 13 months, after since the fighting started, there is an innovation of Western countries like the U.S. and France and they're trying to create some kind of an agreement that would enable people to go back to their homes and to bring, let's say, more quiet into the region. Is it peace? No. Is it about securing the safety of those who live next to the border? Also, no. It's not about that because the sections of the agreement don't reflect those intentions.
Right.
Okay, no, the intentions are good. I'm not saying that they're not. And in Israel, when they talk about this settling agreement, you may find a spectrum of opinions. Okay, you have on one side of the spectrum, you have people who say, "Oh, I would really want to have this settling agreement to be applied, and we would like to go back to our." I mean, the people who live on the northern border, they would like to go back to their homes, etc. And there are those who say, "No, we don't want a settling agreement at all. What we want is 100% victory."
Right.
Okay, we would like to disarm Hezbollah. We would like to make sure that there is a security belt, around the border. We would like to make sure that Hezbollah has no ability to go back to fighting and to like planning terror attacks as they did. Okay, none of their plans got to be executed, Baruch Hashem, thank God. But the plans were, I mean, October the 7th, that was kind of like an amateur work next to compared to what Hezbollah was really planning and what our soldiers are now finding. So they say we don't want any settling agreement with Lebanon or Hezbollah. We would like to take care of ourselves, make sure that Hezbollah is disarmed, and go all the way with the fighting. And in between, you find other opinions. You find, for example, people who say we would like to see a settling agreement and like to bring the flames, lower because it's been really difficult. But not this kind of settling agreement. We would like to see the fact that Israel had a lot of meaningful achievements security-wise. We would like to see those achievements being reflected, in the sections of the settling agreement. Okay, it's not like we finished the war like tied. It's not like we started the war. I mean, we were attacked.
Right.
So and we're able to defeat our enemies, Baruch Hashem, with God's help. And we would like to see that being reflected in the agreement.
Are Israeli citizens, do we have access to see what the agreement says?
The last night, Prime Minister Netanyahu had a press conference after there was a big demand from the people and
Well, I
people in the
listened to
media.
him, but he didn't talk about the agreement itself.
Well, he spoke about like the intentions of the agreement and why they're actually doing it. But then they published well, in Hebrew in any case, they published like sections from the agreement. So, for example, one of the sections talks about a 60-day trial. Okay, so all everything involved in the settling agreement, everything there will be tested for 60 days and will be applied only after 60 days. Once we see 60 days of quiet, entirely quiet, if things are entirely quiet, only then they will apply the other sections. They talk about, they talk about a mutual commitment, from either side, like not to attack the other side, only as self-defense, all sorts of things. I can tell you that an interesting fact is that the people from the northern border, they are the first ones not to accept the agreement. They don't want the agreement. Yeah. Okay, even though it's helping them to get back home, right? To go back home and for their children to go back and everything, it brings them closer to that dream. They are not willing to accept it.
Well, because how can you go home and feel safe after all that's happened?
Exactly. Right? And they say, like, they say, I'm just bringing their point of view, but they say we feel that we are being sold. We're being like a bargaining chip here. And to what extent? They say Western governments are intervening with what's happening on the northern border of Israel, basically in our homes. They're intervening in what's happening without fully recognizing our needs for safety. Right. And they're creating a settling agreement, and they kind of they almost bend Israel's arm, they twist it, behind its back, forcing it to accept the agreement. Because if we don't accept the agreement, then we will take actions, or we will not support you against the decisions which were given in The Hague last week, or we will not make sure that you will have the ammunition that you need in order to keep fighting. These kinds of threats, which makes it feel a little bit like a blackmail. And when we accept the agreement like that, the inhabitants from the north, they say, then when we accept the agreement like that, then clearly it's not about our safety. So there's no way we would like to go back. That's not what we fought for.
Right. What I think most of our people that are following with us anyway, they keep very close tabs on what's going on in Israel, not just the regular news. But I think sometimes people might hear in Western news there's a ceasefire now in place, and of course in Israel, but it doesn't say anything about Hamas. It doesn't say anything about the southern, that whole region there in the south of Israel and in Gaza. What does this mean? Anything? Could this actually mean anything for the situation there in Gaza?
So now, no. Right now, no. If this had happened, a few months ago, when there were more connections between Hezbollah and Hamas, between Iran and those two proxy organizations of Iran, a few months ago there were more connections between them, and I could say that there could be, consequences, to an agreement in the north, for it to be applied also in the south. But now the organizations Hamas is nearly entirely, disarmed.
Finished.
Yeah, finished, and they're trying with the little they have left, but it's not working. Iran understands that Hamas is not going to be a card which it can use any longer, so they're not helping them, and Hezbollah the same. So right now, whatever is happening in the north is happening only in the north. Okay, the connections between the two terror organizations, they don't really exist anymore.
So this isn't in any way, bring hope or good news for those who are waiting for the hostages to be returned?
No, not at all. Not at all. There are negotiations with messengers from Hamas, or just like there have been, right? Using Qatar as a mediator and America and everything, and etc. but there is no relevance between the two agreements at the moment. There are negotiations, to bring back the hostages and all, but it's a whole different story while they're holding more than 100 hostages.
Yeah.
It's a different story. Okay, so the starting point of an agreement is different, but we should also point out an important fact that Israel is not signing an agreement, a settling agreement with Hezbollah. Okay, the negotiation is not with representatives of Hezbollah. The negotiation is with representatives from the Lebanese government. Okay, now the Lebanese, and it's quite complicated to understand. I mean, so we have the Lebanese government, okay, which sits in Beirut, which is more to the north of Lebanon. I mean, they're not in the south of Lebanon where the fighting actually takes place. Right. It's from the north of the Litani River.
Right.
And everything that goes south from the Litani River, that's different. Okay, so it's the Lebanese government who is signing the contract, the settling agreement. It's the Lebanese government who takes responsibility in terms of making sure that Hezbollah will not be stationed, close to basically, not that they won't be stationed because they cannot control that, but they won't perform any terrorist activity.
Right.
Okay, none of that will take place. Okay, so they say we'll make sure of that. And of course, Israel will supervise from its end. But in actual fact, it doesn't mean that Hezbollah activists won't go back to places so close to the border. They can literally look into the eyes of the people who live in Metula and Kiryat Shmona, on the Israeli side.
Right.
And that's what the Israeli inhabitants do not want to be exposed to.
Very difficult. So
very difficult.
Are we able to in any way get a feel for the mood in Israel right now, or is it too soon to kind of say?
It's as we said. I mean, the mood in terms of the settling agreement, and I must say, I have mixed feelings about it myself. I mean, I really do. I mean, on the one hand, I mean, of course, we would like to have one thing less to worry about.
Yeah.
We would like to see more soldiers going back home to their families, fathers and sons and brothers, and we would like to see families being reunited, and it'll give us more air to breathe. Definitely for on the short run. But none of us feels 100% safe that in April, let's say, we won't be seeing another October the 7th. I mean, who knows when? I mean, maybe April 2025, April 2026, or who knows when? Right? I mean, because Israel won't have any ability to secure the border from the Lebanese side. We won't be able to do that. Okay, so we might be able to spot and see, a planning of terrorist activity, but we won't really be able to stop it, to prevent it beforehand. Okay, it doesn't make you feel too comfortable. Right. So the mood is, as you're asking, I mean, it really depends where you are, and really depends on how far do you really look, towards in the future, because I mean, if you really look into the short run, then yes, of course, it brings great spirits. It's wonderful. It's helping us. But if you look into the long run, then maybe not so much.
Yeah. And Netanyahu made it quite clear that at least what I understood, that the major reason that they're pulling back in Lebanon right now is that they can concentrate on the threat from Iran. That's what he said, and then something about he won't go into details. I mean, it was almost like they've got a plan. They do have a plan.
I'm sure that okay. So we have to understand that there is only one entity that controls the whole situation. Okay, and that's not Hamas, and it's not Hezbollah, and it's not Lebanon, and it's not Syria. It's not the Houthis in Yemen. It's Iran. Okay, so that's the main concern. That's really what the main thing we are facing. We're up against. I'm sure that this is in the mindset of all those who make the decisions. Yeah. I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure that I'm sure that there was an attempt to maybe include some sections of the like into the agreement, into settling agreement, some sections that might involve Iran as well. Maybe limit the Israel's ability or intention to attack in Iran. Okay, maybe the. I'm sure that there has been attempts. I mean, we see, we know what the stands are from the governments, like Western governments, who are trying to intervene and mediate in this whole conflict.
Right.
We know what their intentions are. We know more or less, where they wanted to go. But at least we know that Israel did not agree to that. That's something which is still on the table, and I think that it's a painful surgery.
Yeah.
It's a painful surgery, but it might be a life-saving one. So
Yeah.
we can't just avoid the surgery because we're afraid of the pain.
So hard. And okay, so given all of that, and you're saying, there's only one that everything is in his hands, and that's the Lord himself. So then, getting to that mindset, which I'm sure is, as varied as to where people are at with that. It's all in God's hands. It's all, will succeed, Bezrat Hashem, all of these sort of sayings that go along, but it's going to take change, not a change of heart, but a deepening of our hearts in terms of trusting that God is doing what he's doing right now. Can you share a little bit just where you see all of that?
Well, it's definitely. Of course, everything is in the Lord's hands. Clearly. Nobody can say anything against that. That's obvious. Alongside that, it's not even a but it's alongside that. With that, the Lord, as we read it in scriptures, we can see that the Lord is inviting us to partner with Him. Okay, He's giving us, He's opening a door, and He's waiting to see whether we're going to walk through that door.
Right.
Now, we see that in scriptures a lot. We see it right from the beginning. With Abraham, right? We see that with Abraham. He's sending him to the land of Canaan. And then there is famine, and then he needs to go to Egypt, and then from Egypt he comes back to the land of Canaan, and then he has all sorts of interactions all the time with world leaders all the time. It's Pharaoh, it's Avimelech, the king of the Philistines, it's like the king of Sodom, and Melchizedek, the king of Salem, and then he fights against 4 kings who come from the north, and like he's very much into everything that is going on in the region, okay, in the Middle East of those days.
Yeah.
And we always see Abraham taking into account what people say about him. Always. Okay, even though everything was in the Lord's hands, clearly, and the Lord told him what to do in what to do and what to say and where to go, but yet Abraham understood that he must always reach out and must always make sure that whatever people say about him will be the right thing, will be what they should really say about him.
That he represents God himself,
Yeah, for example, when Abraham comes back in chapter 14, when Abraham comes back from the war against the 4 kings, he comes back and then when he comes back with all the people and the confiscated spoil. The kings of the land of Canaan, they said to him, take all the spoil for yourself, everything that you managed to bring back. And then Abraham said, I won't take anything from a shoelace to a sandal strap, lest you say I made Abraham rich. Okay, now it's all Abraham could have said, it's all in the Lord's hands. The Lord is giving me now. He's giving me now all this spoil, all this opportunity. Right, to become even richer and more influential, but Abraham knew how. He could have said it's it's the Lord made it happen. It's in His hands. But Abraham knew that he was partnering with the Lord at that moment. Well, in every moment, he was partnering with Him, and he always had to think. Okay, first of all, what will people say? And what will God say? Is this the right choice or not the right choice? He always had to think about it actively. He didn't just say, okay, it's all in the Lord's hands and that's it. I'm not going to do anything. No, even when the Lord promised Abraham and Sarah to have a child, they had to do something in order for them to have a child. It's not like it was a miraculous pregnancy, but it wasn't that miraculous. Okay, it had the early aspect to it, and that's what it was. I mean, and this is how we read scriptures. We read scriptures as a partnership, a contract between us. It is not just the Lord acting and that we're just being passive, sitting and not doing anything. Something happened here a little bit more than a year ago. Something big happened. We didn't just sit in our homes and said, it's all in the Lord's hands and like He's going to protect us. Of course, He's protecting us. He's protecting us while we are fighting to defend ourselves. He is doing it. He's doing it. When we were taken out of Egypt, we still had to walk in the desert. Okay, I mean, He didn't just take us, He didn't just bring a plane to take us all the way. I mean, we had to walk in the desert. It was all miraculous. It was all guided and instructed by God. Pillar of cloud, pillar of fire, manna, bread, meat, the whole thing. He was definitely in the process. But we had to walk. We had to make a decision. We are leaving this place and going to a place we don't know. We're following this God. We had to make a choice. Okay, it's not, of course, it's all in His hands, but we still have to be as active as we are called to be. So, I mean, in this whole situation, thinking about it, okay, so what should we do? I mean, of course, it's all Bezrat Hashem, it's all in God's help. It's all about that. But we still have to make some serious decisions on the way because He's expecting us to make those decisions. And we have to make the right decisions that He wants us to make. And remember, why are we here? Why are we here from the first place? I mean, why should we be in this place? There are nicer places. There are quieter places. There are maybe more prosperous places. We are here because He wants us here, because this is His land, and He said, I'm not sure exactly how to translate it, but He said, my eyes are on this land from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. This is the place. This is where He sent Abraham. This is the place that He promised to the offspring of Abraham. This is what He wants from us. This is the only place where we can maximize our potential as Jewish people. There is no other place we can fully maximize our potential. Okay, there are commands that we can only keep in this place. Okay, this is really the place. Do you remember that? He's asking. Do you really remember that? Are you willing to fight for it? If I challenge you, will you fight for it? It's of course it's in His hands, clearly. And he is helping us so much. I mean, we would not have been able to do any of the things that we've done over the last 13 months unless He helped us.
Right.
It's all from Him. We don't think for a second that the number of interceptions, like the high rates of interceptions from the Iron Dome, are because we are so clever to come up with this kind of technology. No, it's because He gave us the ability to create that kind of technology. But if it weren't for His decision to help us to do it, to enable us to do it, we would not have been able to do it. Never. So none of the decisions that our government or people, even little people like myself, that we need to make, none of the decisions that we feel that we are called to make has anything to diminish the fact that God is in control, and eventually it's all in His hands, and He will give the final say about what this is going to look like, definitely. But balancing like the earthly experience of the whole thing and the spiritual one, that's also a challenge. Always remember Him, because you open the news, you just want to close it. You just want, okay, I don't want to hear it. But you have to, because you live here, and the faces that are being advertised every morning and the names, these are your brothers, right? These are your brothers and sisters who are now losing their closest relatives. This is pain that is touching you.
Right.
It's touching you.
Right.
And so you really feel that on an earthy level, and balancing that with God's will, and knowing that He is the one to really take us through, no matter what the cost is, what the price is. It's something that is really challenging people. Challenging, I might say, the challenging maybe in a good way,
Right.
because it takes good out of people in the end.
Yeah.
It's not easy. It's definitely not easy.
I know that you and Leah have been over the last few years mentoring a group of young people. How are they? I mean, you see them; they're dealing with
They're
it. Some of
fighting.
them,
I
some
mean,
of
they
them
are the soldiers who are fighting. They're 20 now. They're turning 21 this year. And all of them are fighting. I mean, some of them have already lost members of their fighting team, from their squads, from their units. Some of them got injured. We have an expression in Hebrew, like to hold one's heart. Like when you say I'm holding my heart, it's like I'm really, really worried. So every time we open, we open like the media, like WhatsApp, and we get messages, like we are really worried, like to know what's happening with these guys.
Yeah.
And but I must tell you, I mean, I am overwhelmed, because they come here every week, and like just to see them coming back from the battles, and such high spirits and such high motivation and such a sense of a mission and a calling, and these very, very young kids, very young, and they it's inspiring, really. I'm looking at them, 20 years older than they are, and I'm going, how are you holding this? This is so complicated for such young people.
Yeah.
But they do.
Yeah,
and
because I sort of think about that too. When I see the young people and soldiers, and see them outside of the battle situation with such gentle spirit and smiling, and but not in a sort of boastful way. Like so I kind of think surely it's because the ones that I've seen are ones who are walking with God. So I mean, how can you hold yourself in that place? Keep that humility of heart and that gentleness. If with outside of God, it must be.
I don't think there is. I don't think there is a reality of being outside of God in these situations. I think
maybe
when you're fighting a war, such a just battle between light and darkness, good and evil, and you're standing on the right side. You're standing on the good side, the pure side. Once you do that, you're fighting on in His name. There's no way He's going to take His presence from your heart in that moment. So I don't think there is such a thing of outside of God in that situation.
Yeah. Wow.
And also on a personal note, I mean, our son is joining the army next week on December the 5th.
Yeah.
And he's joining the paratroopers, and we talk a lot about that. Of like, are you up for it, and like, where are you at, and you see a young man, and 18 and a half, and so full of a sense of a calling, and this is really my way to make a change, and to make it better for the next generation, for my families, for my. It's overwhelming.
Yeah.
Really.
Is there a fear that, I mean, when at the beginning of this war, back in October, when so many soldiers were reservists, they signed up, they came back from wherever they were.
Yeah.
Is there a sort of a fear that by stopping for a period of 60 days or whatever, that might diminish?
It's definitely going to hurt that.
Yeah.
Okay, because restarting the engine again,
yeah.
That's a different story. Yeah.
There'd have to be a very clear motive and a clear sense of where things are going.
Yeah, and that's why I think that we all should be praying for decisions to be made for the right reasons.
Yes.
Okay, so really for the right reasons, not because threats that are coming from against the government of Israel, not because of fear, not because of despair, and short spirit.
Mhm.
It's just for the right reasons, because it's the right thing, because it's what God wants. To really, really, really pray for that. So
Yes.
that that all the judgment will not be clouded, can you say?
Yeah.
It won't be clouded by anything. It'll be a godly judgment.
Yeah, and I suppose to keep praying for Netanyahu, because I'm sure this has been as hard for him to announce this as
I don't know how that man sleeps at night.
Yeah,
It's like so much pressure,
so
much pressure from every
every
direction,
side. Yeah,
from every direction.
Yeah.
It's
so we just really hold him up and pray for him.
Yeah.
Well, thank you everybody for joining us, and
Thank you.
we'll do this again probably in another month or so, and just keep you posted.
Thank you guys. Thank you,
Thanks,
and happy
Gil.
Thanksgiving, you guys in America.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see.